Do my Hi everyone, and I am Tom Tormey. Welcome to Cosmic Comic Nation, powered by Comic Con Radio. And it is my absolute pleasure today to welcome Hedwig Hale, the writer, the creator of Scout Comics' She Bites, which is just a phenomenal series. And I've been telling everyone about it. I was talking to Miss Hale just a couple of minutes ago, and I said I don't have my copy of issue 1 and 2 because I lent them out, and that's what I always say. That's one of the great compliments of reading a good comic is how long I could keep it in my house. If it's not a good comic, it's going to go right in the box. If it's a great comic, it's going to get lent out to someone else. And I first encountered She Bite. I'm a New York City native, and I was heading out to my local comic book shop in Howard Beach, a place called Comics Are for Kids. And the owner, Jamie, as soon as I came in, he said, I have a great book that I think you're going to love. And he pointed right at She Bites. I came home, and I rarely do this, read through the book and laughed out loud, to the point where my son asked me what I was laughing at, and I gave the book to him. He enjoyed it. So I am ecstatic. I reached out to Hedwig Hale, and we put this together, and I'm so glad that I have the opportunity to talk to you. So thank you very much for coming on the show.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm so glad you like the book. I love lending comics too. My copies of the first couple volumes of Ice Cream Man have been the latest that never can stay on my shelf.
Good choice. Good choice. Are you so She Bites has that kind of horror and comedy feel to it. It's set, I believe, in 1997 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which I believe you're a native of.
Yes.
Oh, you're not actually. You're currently residing in Pittsburgh. Are a native of?
I'm a native of Pittsburgh. I'm residing in Los Angeles, where it is 70 and sunny today. So I think I'm beating you on the weather.
Oh, you're definitely beating me on the weather. Yes, it's pouring rain and windy here. Absolutely. So She Bites takes place in 1987 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and it is about a 134-year-old vampire living in the body of a 9-year-old girl. And her name is Elsie Baker, and she just can't seem to find a way in the world because of limitations of her 9-year-old stature. She may be 134 years old, but she looks like a 9-year-old, so she can't buy her cigarettes, she can't buy her beer, and she goes out and she hires herself a desperate, destitute, depressed babysitter in the form of Brenda Zelinsky, and who's at the time, I believe, when we first meet her, she's kind of looking to buy a ticket to Scotland to kind of end it all. And meeting Elsie obviously changes her life, and it's just a really clever, fun book. A lot of horror coming out of Pittsburgh. And when I think, I said to you earlier, when I think of Pittsburgh and horror, Dawn of the Dead comes to mind. Do you ever get
I think the Zombie Walk was born in Pittsburgh. Like, Pittsburgh is very zombies. Like, it's part of our heritage. I would love to do a zombie story comic one day. It's actually something I'm like slowly working my way up to, but I love zombie stuff too. And I was telling you earlier, my professor from college, one of my cinematography professors, was the guy who shoots himself in the face in Dawn of the Dead.
That is something I would lead with in every conversation.
I do as much as possible.
Obviously. Oh yeah. You know, I know the guy who shot himself in the face in Dawn of the Dead. That would be my first thing.
He's wearing like a hat. Like, his name's John Rice. He's a super cool guy. Love him, miss him. Love you, Jay Rice.
That's great. Did you ever get a chance to see I know that is the mall that it was filmed in there is where it's
Oh yeah, that's like a mall that's around that I definitely was at. Malls in Pittsburgh definitely have like a special place in my heart, which you definitely see in the comic. The mall that is in She Bites isn't that mall, but it is a very similar kind of mall that was around for forever and that doesn't exist anymore. But it was so fun and funny to see my artist like drawing this old weird mall that doesn't exist anymore. Like, it's called Century 3 Mall. I loved it. That was my formative mall, but I think it's Parkway Center or Ross Park. I can't remember. It's one of those two that's the Dawn of the Dead. That may actually still be open, but anyways, enough about malls.
I think malls and zombies, two essentially dying things, right? So that is pretty cool. The art itself is so like jovial and so playful compared to oftentimes the seriousness of going on. And I always think that the two things that really, admittedly, and I think one of the reviews I did in Spoiler Magazine for, I believe it was the first or second issue, is that I would think that it wouldn't work, but really they go together so well because there are such great moments of levity, and then the horror kind of draws you right back in, and you remember who Elsie really is as she's interacting with Brenda. Like sometimes you forget that she's not this 9-year-old girl. She is a 134-year-old vampiric monster that just happens to look like a 9-year-old girl. And I definitely think the art meshes so well with that concept. And
Alberto did such an amazing job. Honestly, I think one of the hardest things was finding the right artist for the tone, because the tone is very weird. It's like cute and horror and heartfelt and dark comedy. Like it's a very specific balance to strike. Like I had all the artists draw the page where she sees the dead boys with their penises out in the bathroom.
right.
That was like one of the test art pages. I had a bunch of different artists draw, and it was so fun to see that in a bunch of different art styles. But Alberto, he captured that so well, because the tone is the thing that I love the most about it. And I love horror stuff, like genuine, gross, disgusting, like Evil Dead horror stuff. And I wanted it to have that, but I did also want her to be cute. Like she has both of those things, and he did such a great job.
He did. And I tell you, that is one of the scenes that legitimately made me laugh, where Brenda walks in and sees this genuinely horrific scene. And her first response, or maybe not her first response, but after the abject horror sets in, and she works out a deal with Elsie, that she makes her promise never to have to see something like this again. And she says, well, I didn't make you look. And I just thought that was so genius. And one of the things I've told a lot of people is, as I'm reading this book, it has a real cinematic quality to it. It has, as I'm reading it, and I don't know if movies and TV shows have kind of ruined it for when I'm reading a comic book, because I keep thinking to myself, how would this play out as a movie? But She Bites really has an amazing cinematic quality to it. Do you have any plans, or would you like to see it? Because I definitely, if Wednesday is knocking people out of the park, I would only imagine She Bites would just go significantly further. Any plans for it outside of the comics?
I mean, so originally this actually was a pilot script. I come from a film background. I mean, I've worked in like marketing for 10 years trying to make my living money, but I've been writing pilots for many years. And this was a pilot that I wrote maybe 4 or 5 years ago that I always loved. And we kind of pitched around a little bit. And I actually wanted to see it as a comic back then when I first wrote it, but it was difficult for me to find the right people to talk to. It's hard to break into comics as a writer. I cannot draw at all. Thank you, Alberto, for being amazing, because I am like doing stick figures and stuff. Although I do think coming from a film background, going into comics is really interesting. It's more like writing as a director than it is writing as a writer in a lot of ways. But so it was a script to begin with, and I submitted it to this script to comic contest during quarantine, the first one they ever did, and I won the contest, which helped me get this book made, which was really cool. And this is my first comic, but I'm an avid reader for many, many years of a lot of different, especially like graphic novel kind of series, and I love it as a medium, and I'm really hoping to do more comics. But in terms of She Bites being adapted, there might be some things in the works that we can talk about soon, hopefully. But I'm really excited. I just really want to tell more stories with them, and I'm hoping that I'm going to get to do that. I would love to do more comics and a show in a perfect world, but I mean, we'll see how things shake out. But I really do love them as characters, and I have so many ideas of like weird stuff I want to do with them. In any format I could do that with, it would make me really happy.
I would imagine it would make us happy too. I mean, I think what also struck me as I'm reading She Bites issues 1, 2, and 3, it really is not until and without giving too much away, almost the final pages of the 3rd issue that we're really introduced to what is potentially the main antagonist of the series. And you look back at it as you're reading issues 1 and 2, and you really think to yourself, because a lot of books will spend an exorbitant amount of effort having to draw you into this world that they've created. And in your case, as we're dealing with She Bites, there's a lot to take in, but we take it in well, because not only is it set in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, it's also set in 1997. It's also starring a 9-year-old, a 134-year-old, 9-year-old looking vampire. There's a lot to take in, but it was done really so seamlessly that I'm reading issues 1, I'm reading issue 2, excuse me, and then it only was till I got to the end of the 3rd. I said, oh, you know what? We haven't really met an antagonist of sorts. It has been focused so much on Elsie and Brenda's relationship that you kind of didn't even notice that they, and as it was starting to build out their world, you didn't notice that there was no real antagonist yet. So I think that was really, really clever. Whereas other books kind of just force you into the world, and they throw so much at you that you really can't process it. This was done on a nice, even introductory level. It was very well done.
No, I'm glad you think so. I mean, Elsie's also kind of an antagonist, like the engine of Elsie and Brenda, with like Elsie could kill Brenda and might kill Brenda. Like they're kind of an antagonist to each other in a way too. And then, the antagonist at the end of the 3rd book, we won't give it away, but she's definitely an antagonist. And I think as their adventures would continue, there would be other people that would come into it, just in terms of concealing Elsie's identity, and like Elsie's obviously murdering people, and that usually leads to people noticing. So, I think there's going to be a lot of factors at play that are kind of weighing in on what they're trying to do.
Is there a particular reason or an inspiration behind the year as the setting?
I mean, it's kind of one of my favorite, like, growing up years. It's like my Stranger Things years were the 90s. I mean, part of it with Elsie, it's like, if Elsie existed now, she could probably just get by on Amazon and, like, Grubhub deliveries and stuff. So that was like part of the reason with setting it back. But it's also like, you always love writing in your heyday. And, I love the idea of the horror of like, the grimy, bloody, horrifying stuff juxtaposed with the 90s neon. I thought that would be really cool visually too. So that's one of the reasons why I thought it would be cool. But.
Yeah, good choice. No, that makes a lot of sense. So you had mentioned that you had got involved with comic writing through Script 2 comic?
Mm-hmm. Script and numeral 2 comic.
I'm sorry?
Script and then a numeral 2.
Oh, I'm not familiar with this.
If you're looking for it, I'm pretty sure they're still doing the contest. So.
And how did you find your way to this? As you mentioned, you're putting out pilots. You're looking to get these pilots picked up. What drew your attention to Script 2 comics, Roman numeral 2?
I mean, as a Hollywood hopeful, I look at Deadline every day, like the cool guy that I am. Not great at looking at the regular news some days, but I try to always look at Deadline to see what's going on. And I just saw it on Deadline, and I was like, you know what? It's quarantine. I don't usually apply to contests because I'm a nervous person, but I went for it, and it worked out. So, always go for it.
Yesterday I had the opportunity to talk to Susan Eisenberg, and she had a similar mantra about having the courage to push forward and go for it. And I will tell you that I'm blessed in that through the social media accounts that I've been able to interact with a lot of people. And similar to what you had just mentioned, a lot of people during quarantine kind of found that courage to be themselves and then share that version of themselves with the world. So I'm really glad you did that, because that's a win-win. And I have seen a lot of the comic books become that backdoor inspiration into series, as you've seen, where some people are worried about comic book fatigue in television and movies. But the truth is, comic books are a medium just like anything else. And there's such a variety. There's no capes or tights and she bites, but it's clever and it's intriguing. And I think that you might get your dream after all. I could definitely see she bites heading that direction.
Well, I'm honestly too, and I don't want to like poo-poo at like, oh, comics are a stepping stone for their TV. It's like that I started in TV, but I love comics and I love and respect them as their own medium. And it was such an amazing and fun challenge to finally get to make this as a comic. I mean, I think something to never forget is like, if you have a story that you really, really like, don't stop trying to find new ways to tell it. Because like, okay, the first time that my agent sent this out as a pilot, it like had a different name, and no, there weren't any bites. And I was really sad because I loved the story and I loved these characters so much. And everybody that read it, that knew me, loved it. So finding a slightly different avenue to do it, and it being comics, like, felt like one of those things where like you have to keep going, you have to be open to what opportunities are around you, and like, try as a creative, you're always trying to just like find some way to make your thing exist. And as a writer, it's so solitary for so many years, and getting to see, even just when I remember when I got my first test artist drawing of Elsie and Brenda, I like cried because it was amazing, because you never get to see them. They're not like, they're real to you, but you don't get to see them in anybody else's eyes or get to show them to anyone. And like, this was such a special experience for me for that reason, but also just as a segue into hopefully doing more comics, because I love it. And I think whether or not things become a show, like, that's kind of a different thing. Like,
Sure.
the seed of the story is one thing, but I mean, comics as a medium are so specific and like interesting and difficult challenge to do as a writer.
Have you had an opportunity to interact with other writers, artists, or even fans at different conventions, whether it's in LA or whether it's West Coast, East Coast? Have you had an opportunity to shop the book around and see people's reactions to it?
Yeah, I mean, it's been awesome. We did an Ashcan like last year at New York Comic Con was the first thing that we did. I did this crazy thing where I made all these flyers that looked like the flyer from the book, and I put them around the city. And when you called the number, it was my friend's daughter pretending to be Elsie, and it was like, go to the Scout booth and you get a free Ashcan, like, kind of thing. But I literally sprained my ankle trying to go around the city, like, putting them all up. But it was fun, and the people, not that many people did it, but the people who did, like, loved it, and it was awesome. So we did that at New York Comic Con last year, and then we did a panel and the same thing at Comic Con Special Edition, and then this year at Comic Con, like, San Diego. So yeah, it's just like, it's crazy. It's like weird for me to hear people be like, I love it. I'm like, do you?
No,
It's
yeah.
very strange to me, but I'm happy, and I do believe in the story. So I'm so happy that people are getting to see it. And just, I'm big on like dark comedies about mental health issues, and that's kind of at its core what this is. And it makes me happy to get to put that kind of story out.
So would One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest be on your list of movies to watch, or is that maybe a little too
No,
big?
it's actually really funny. The next book, or I'm trying to pitch a new series soon, and I've been describing it as One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest meets Buffy. So hopefully it'll get picked up by someone and you'll see it sometime.
You definitely have a knack for taking what could be horrific, but then making it hysterical. So I do like the combination. And if you are doing something like that, you could definitely count me as one of the readers when it comes out. I would love to take a look at that for sure. So you're writing comic books, you're writing scripts. What are you? This seems like this would be a totally immersive experience where you would be monopolizing a lot of your time. What do you do to kind of relax and take your mind off things, or just do for fun?
Well, the number one thing that I did to relax, which was a really crazy move, about 6 months ago, I quit my full-time job. I worked in marketing for like 10 years, doing like writing and directing and stuff for TV networks for promos and stuff, which I loved. It was good, but I always describe it as the onion rings. Like, yeah, you can eat onion rings every day, but like, they don't really have nutrients. Like, I need I need the steak. Like, I need the steak. And I wasn't getting enough steak, and I saved up some money. And so I made this like bold move to quit my day job. And so I've been able to like live the dream that I've always wanted to live for the past 6 months. It's going to come to a close soon here, but I finished 2 huge projects. I've gotten to like live that life where you like wake up and write. I get to like go to the coffee shop, like what you think those LA writers do, which some of them do. I don't know how they do it. I don't come from a place where I could I'm from Pittsburgh. We're hard workers. We don't have safety nets. We just work forever till we drop dead. So
That's right. That's the American way.
That's the Pittsburgh way.
Right.
But so that's been awesome. I mean, I also do a lot of like arts and crafts stuff. I do a lot of like clay. I have a goofy like craft brand called Crafts for Assholes, where I make a lot of inappropriate things like crocheted penises with googly eyes and bow ties, and
Listen,
uterus-shaped heating pads.
assholes need crafts too. All right,
They do, and
we
I am
can't do
one, and
yeah,
it's, you know,
that's a big market. There's a lot of them.
anything creative is good. I think if like you have a block where like you can't work on your thing, what I always try to do is like something else creative that doesn't feel like as heavy of a lift in that moment. Or I like to watch things that are like what I'm aiming for. Like I'm gonna rewatch Barry from the beginning, and I'm gonna hope it like seeps into my brain in some way. I'm gonna take some notes and like use that. Like I think there's always ways you can be turning your wheels, even if you have a little bit of a writer's block.
Is there anything that would be on your other than Barry? Anything that would be on your DVR? Anything that would be what you're drawing your inspiration from now?
I love Dead to Me. If you haven't watched it on
Sure,
Netflix, is excellent. It's like that kind of dark comedy friendship is like my exact pocket.
I don't think I ever watched Dead to Me, but I could picture. I think I could picture the Grim Reaper blowing a bubble on it.
No, that's Dead Like Me.
Oh gosh, no.
So how dare you? How dare you?
I'm so sorry.
This is Dead to Me. It's like Christina Applegate. It's a Netflix show. It's only 3 seasons. It's really, really the best. I love it. It's like if you like this, then you'll like that.
Gotcha. Oh, I have to check that out. So as you're being inspired for anything from Dead to Me to Barry to beyond, is there anything you can tell us maybe about some of the future projects you have on the horizon? Anything you're dabbling in, whether it's in TV or comics?
Yeah, I mean, I'm working on that pitch for the new comic that I'm really hoping will, like, I'm literally sending it out this week. So I've been working on like a pitch. I had like a really cool artist that I loved their work from the test pages, do some pages for me, which has really been cool. So that's getting sent out like this week. So hopefully I'm going to get to work on more comics. I really want to. The zombie thing I really want to write also, which is like a YA kind of like zombie colony thing, but it's like a trailer park, and it's kind of like, you know how the White Walkers are like, they have to take children to like expand their ranks,
right?
Like imagine if zombies were in like a trailer park encampment and they had to like steal babies and turn them into zombies to do their ranks, but like none of the zombie children knew that.
Okay.
So I'm working on like just like I got some loose ideas, but I love the horror comedy space. I mean, I think at least for comics, that's kind of where I'd like to stay. I just think that's my favorite, at least for this medium. Feels like, you know.
I think we're in like another golden age too of really horror comics that we really haven't seen since like the 1950s. I mean, I'm picking up even Creepshow books on the shelf, and horror is making a huge comeback. I don't know if you could attribute it to shows and series like Walking Dead.
It's more that we live in the apocalypse right now.
It could be that. It could be that. Yeah,
I think that's probably it.
Yeah, maybe it's the end times, and we're being drawn to what we fear, right? So, I mean, there is a lot of that. That there generally you do see the revival of horror when the world is at its most chaotic, and
especially horror with a little wink to it. Like even I love Something Is Killing the Children is like one of my favorite series now, but it is funny. Like it has levity. Like it has great characters, and I love stuff that's dark but also light. I think it.
Well, I agree with you. You kind of need that. You can't be gasping the whole time. You gotta let that out a little. You gotta let that nervous energy out a little bit. And I think the levity really helps out a lot. I mean, I there's a few panels and where Elsie is just cute as a button, and then in a page or two later, she is this horrific beast, and she walks both lines. And I think as an audience, you need that a little bit. You need that break. I also think one of the cool things about seeing her in that little cute status is that we know, as opposed to the people who are interacting with her, except for Brenda, we know that she is this beast that looks like a 9-year-old, and she could just go off at any moment, like you said. She could be Brenda's antagonist. She could, like you said, kill her at any moment, kill anyone at any moment, and there's really nothing that at this point can stop her. So it's cool to have that balance of both that light and dark.
You should never judge a book by its cover. I remember like living in New York for all the years that I did, I'd be on the subway and like everybody would sit next to me because I look nice and I have glasses and I look non-threatening. Whereas I'm probably the most mad person on that subway right now. And you probably shouldn't sit there. I mean, I'm not going to murder them, but like in terms of what's going on inside, like you never know
Right.
what people are after. And sometimes when you're in a bad mood, it sucks to be somebody who looks like they're nice or cute because you just want to be left alone, but you aren't. So I don't know, Elsie and Brenda, I love them. They're definitely both like made out of pieces of me. Like Elsie is like the world weary hermit who's like been through all this shit and like really part of her just wants to be left alone forever. But like she needs people, she needs them. She needs humanity. Like she, especially after quarantine, I feel that even more. Like part of me is great being alone, but I need that balance or else weird stuff starts to happen in your serial killer stuff starts happening in your brain. You don't want that. You don't want that. And then Brenda, like when we start the story, Brenda has these like lofty dreams of being a professional musician. She wants to go to school for that. She puts everything she has into it and gets her dreams kind of crushed, which kind of happened with me too. Like I've had these one track dreams that I've been like, it's this, we're doing this. Yeah. And then you get shut out and it feels like the end of your world. It's really, really hard to find your way back, but like you always can, especially with the help of a friend.
I was about to ask you, because as you mentioned before, you are going to get knocked down. You are going to have these setbacks, but to persevere and keep going. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is sometimes as we get our tunnel vision as those rejection and those failures kind of seem to be mounting up and odds of success seem insurmountable. But it does help to have those people with us. And I'm sure just like in a lot of people's lives in your life, you had people along the way that kind of pulled you back and got you back on track and reminded you of your goals and what you hope to accomplish. And to those people, we owe a great deal of debt because every hero has those people on their journey. So I'm grateful for them, and I'm grateful that you've persevered because we now have this amazing piece of work that we get to hold. And although I don't judge books by its cover, I do really enjoy the covers of She Bites. I think.
Thank you. I mean, Alberto thanks you.
Yeah. Oh, true. Right. So you did mention that you put pieces of Elsie, you put pieces of yourself into Elsie. So I thought we would take a few minutes to kind of see how Elsie would respond in her way into interacting with different vampires from fiction. So, well, I say from fiction as if they're vampires from nonfiction, vampires from history. Dracul. So maybe if you wouldn't mind telling me what Elsie's thoughts would be on Marvel's Blade. How would she interact with Blade?
I mean, I think Elsie could hang with Blade. I feel like a lot of vampires that are like cool guys, she'd be like, I don't know, man. But I feel like Elsie and Blade could hang.
All right. How about, I think Louis from Interview with a Vampire. I think that was in the film. I think it was Brad Pitt's character.
Do you want to know something crazy?
I do want to know something crazy.
I have never watched Interview with a Vampire.
Oh, yeah?
Okay, and partially because I was working on this. Okay. And people were always like, oh, there's a character like it's the closest one. And I just I kind of stayed away from it.
Right.
I mean, I love like 90s vampire movies. Like I love Lost Boys. I mean, I feel like she would probably be the leader of those guys. I mean, honestly, she would just
how long do you think it would take her to take over the Lost Boys?
Like 2 days or less.
I will tell you, when I lent the books out, let issue 1 and 2 out to my friend, and I said it's about this 9-year-old looking 134-year-old vampire, his immediate response was, oh, like Kirsten Dunst from Interview with the Vampire. I said, maybe an appearance, but if you read the book, nothing like her. Nothing like her.
I haven't read I should read the book is what I should do. I did read Carmilla, which I know is another one that's like kind of like a deeper cut. It's like one of the first vampire novels. I think it is the first vampire novel, but that has like kind of a young girl character in it.
I'm going to nod along with you like I know the book.
That's okay. We all have our holes, you know. I don't like to lie.
I'm going to nod. Oh yes, Carmel. Yes, it's one of my favorites. How about art? So I'm going to go a little. I think it's 90s. I'm going to go with Eddie Murphy and Vampire from Brooklyn. Ever see that one?
I mean, that is a good one. That is a
Uh,
classic. I mean, I think they could hang. In my idea of Elsie's backstory, she spent a lot of time in New York, actually, hanging
okay.
out with like the cool guy vampires. So, like, I could see them hanging out.
All right. How would she get along with Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
I mean, I think she would probably like kind of hate Buffy, but then maybe have like not a Spike kind of romance, but like I
Mhm.
think they could have that rapport where they respect each other, but like are still enemies kind of thing. They're not gonna like do it or anything, but
Maybe, maybe a musical number, like
yeah, I don't know if Elsie. Well, she does play the violin, but I don't know if she would sing. That would really need to be a special circumstance for her to sing.
and not to bring it back, but I have to bring it back to one more vampire character, Morbius the Living Vampire. Let's go with not the cool comic. Let's go with the Jared Leto movie version.
She might think that that guy is like a little la di da for her. I mean, he's very like I think a lot of those kind of guys. It's like, oh, I'm so sad. It's like it's so hard for me. She'd probably be like, shut up.
It's awesome being a vampire. What are you talking about? You know,
Be like, look, we all come on, man. Like, just suck it up. It's not so bad. Like,
that's great. So we have issues 1, 2, and 3 on the shelf. Is there anything coming up with She Bites?
so the trade is coming out on allegedly February 22nd, which is
Okay.
exciting. I'm a trade girl myself. I am really impatient, so I like trades because I like to binge things. Plus,
Sure.
floppies, like I crunch them up in my backpack. It's just like I can't handle the responsibility. So I love trades, and I love like bookstores too, and I love comic sections at bookstores. I love comic bookstores too, but like I think there's like a little, it's an easier barrier to entry, and like seeing the trade at a bookstore is going to make me really happy. Although I did see it in the live I did see She Bites live in a store for the
Okay.
first time at
How'd that
Revenge
feel?
in LA, and it was pretty cool. And they
Yeah,
liked it, and they read it, so I was really happy.
that's great. And when Susan Eisenberg was on, I said when you go into a store and you see a child looking at a Wonder Woman toy, do you go, hey, that's that's me? How did you feel when you came into the comic book shop and you saw people and like, oh, listen, you're like that book? Oh, you like that book? Well, you're welcome. I made it. How do you respond to that? Is that a cool feeling? That's got to be
I
great.
mean, I've never had it where like somebody was like looking at or whatever. Like
Oh,
I'm pretty like nervous slash humble, but I think like I just try to be really thankful for
sure.
anybody giving it the time of day because I am really thankful for anybody giving it the time of day. And it's exciting. It's cool. It's like kind of surreal. It's one of those things that's like hard to sink in. I'm more just want to like be thankful and move and make more stuff.
Right. Oh no, yeah, I absolutely, and that's great to hear that even after this success and all the continued success that you still have that humility because I would not be. I would be walking around with this book just like in front of me and like, oh, this? You're wondering why? Oh, because I wrote this. That's why. That's why. You should read it too.
It just makes me happy that it gets to exist in the world. It makes me really, really happy. So
Well, I'm very happy for you, and I wish you continued success. So that's where we're going to see the trade. Hopefully around February. Uh, are there any places where people can meet you? Are you doing any shows out in LA anytime soon?
I don't know yet. I would love to do some stuff. I actually really, really want to go to FlameCon this year in New York, but I don't know. I've like talked to some friends about trying to figure a panel out. I don't know. It's all
Right.
TBD, but I have done a bunch of cons before, and I love cons, so I love finding a reason to go. So if you want me to be on your panel, I'm good on a panel.
All right, we got. I'm going to put this clip out, and I'm going to tag all the local comic
I've
event.
got the jokes, and I like a reason to go to a convention.
You know what? I'm sure you would be a hit with, especially not only with the audience, but with just. I could picture a panel of great horror writers like yourself, and I think it would be beautiful to see.
I would be my honor to be on anyone's panel and be
Uh,
among. It's just exciting to be involved, or just to be there. I love like just hanging out, and I used to do a lot of cosplay in my youth.
and that was going to be where I was going, and I'm glad you brought it there because now you are on the panel side. Now you are uh, working a booth. Is it something that prior to this that you were experiencing from the other side? Were you walking Artist Alley and were you walking the shows and looking at all the cool books and and arts and crafts.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially the arts and crafts. I
Yeah.
love that stuff. My first con that I ever went to was Takosha Con in Pittsburgh, and then I did Otakon a few years in Baltimore. And I love Halloween and costumes and stuff. And I love dressing up at cons because people actually know who you are. Like I was Enid from Ghost World in New York one year. Nobody knew who I was except for one bouncer. I'm like, come on, New York. What are
Right.
you doing?
You
Like,
didn't know Ghost World.
but people at a con would know, so I
Right,
did
right.
love that. But it was crazy. I was always an attendee, and then I worked for NBC's activations for The Good Place and Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I like helped do the creative for those. So like I was there like working so hard that I almost died, but it was awesome to make
Wow.
something for the fans. Like I'm a fan first of things. Like I love nerd stuff and it was fun to make something for nerds. It's a lot easier to be on a panel than it is to be on that side. So I've been on all these different kind of viewpoints of it, but I do love like just being in that environment. It's just fun.
Well, I would definitely keep an eye out to see if you are going to be anything from FlameCon to, especially anything as an East Coaster myself. I'll be looking out for that. How about in terms of contacting you or following you on social media? Is there any way that fans or She Bites or any of your other work can do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have an Instagram that's just at She Bites Comic. I'm not always great at updating it, but I try to. And then I also have my personal one, which is at Heather Makes Things. Heather is my birth name. Hedwig is my much more fun pen name. But you can find me on there. I post like craft stuff, but I'll post She Bites updates and things like that too. Just around doing stuff in LA. So
Right.
post about that.
Well, I really wanted to thank you and really not only thank you for taking the time to come on the show, but also thank you for producing one of the funniest, most horrific books that I've read in a long time. And it is a great honor to have you on. So thank you very much for joining us. And I can't wait to see more from you in the future.
That is high praise. Thank you so much. The honor is mine.
Well, thanks again. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for checking us out.